So I think we've done this the last like 2 or 3 years, right?
We definitely did it for Blackout, called Black Ops 4. I feel like we might have done it before. We did Blackout though.
I think we did it like literally like the last 2 or 3 years. I could be wrong though.
You're always hyper optimistic though.
Well, since this is for YouTube VOD, let's do like proper introductions.
Sounds good.
You are Sandy Ravage. Can you talk a little bit about your history with Call of Duty? How long you've been playing in the series? What makes you qualified to opine about the current trajectory of Call of Duty, sir?
I can't say that I'm qualified myself, but I've been around for a good 10 years now. You'll probably recognize me from when Hutch monetized my Booster Justice video on his own channel and made an absolute killing off of it.
You might also recognize his screen name from white nationalist forums across the internet.
Is this how we're going to start this?
He's a huge presence on 4chan, let's just say that.
No, but we've both been around for quite a while, and I've experienced every Call of Duty. But
what was the first Call of Duty that you played in though?
I started with COD 4. I played the thing that came for free with the Xbox 360 of COD 2, which was awesome. The Normandy map. That was awesome, and that made me immediately get COD 4, which happened to be like that day when it came out.
Wait. Hold on. They had one free map for Call of Duty 2 for Xbox 360?
Yeah, it was a demo. Remember back in the day, there were like the game demos you get to play for like an hour?
Yeah, I just played the full game, so I didn't even know that they had like a free demo on the...
I did not have any Call of Duty until 4. But that's one of the greatest games ever made, so here we are.
Certainly one of the best in the series, right?
Absolutely.
And then what's been your favorite title in the series so far?
Modern Warfare 2.
Wait, and what was it about Modern Warfare 2 that made that stick out for you more than COD 4?
It just expanded on everything in COD 4, although granted, they went both directions. It expanded in a better way and a worse way. But to me, overall, it was unbelievably fun. They went too far.
Just to be a fly on the wall for the creative meetings for Modern Warfare 2, like I feel like all of those meetings had to have ended with somebody just saying, you know what, fuck it.
Yeah. Let's just throw it in. We'll fix it later.
Yeah. Figure it out.
But they tried to do too much. They tried to appeal to players who couldn't get kills, so then you end up with death streaks. Every gun, which I have no problem with every gun being overpowered. And that was Modern Warfare 2.
Well, one of the devs recently said something about weapon balance, but we'll get to that later because I have like a list of things to discuss here. But so now let's talk a bit about Modern Warfare 2019. So you haven't played it. You weren't at any of the reveals, right? So your only experience is playing the alpha and then watching other people's gameplay?
Correct. Just the in-home alpha that we all got to play.
Yeah, well, I think that even just playing the 2v2 alpha on the smaller maps still gives you plenty of room to like discuss the game. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You get a feel for the guns, maybe not so much like the bigger map designs, but the gunplay I feel like is probably the most important aspect of Call of Duty.
Gunplay and movement by far. Absolutely. You could totally tell just from the 2v2 mode.
Right. You know what? I skipped a little bit here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the current trajectory of COD. So before we get into a full-on discussion of Modern Warfare, how are we feeling about the last 5 years of Call of Duty?
Well, I haven't made a Call of Duty video in forever, so that sums it up for me.
Well, you made Blackout videos. It just popped up in my recommended
just a couple.
Videos.
That didn't really count. Just a few.
Well, you played a lot of Blackout for 3 or 4 months.
That's Battle Royale, though. I thought you're talking like Call of Duty multiplayer.
Oh, yeah, I guess
I love Blackout.
I guess it's fair to split them up.
But in terms of Call of Duty multiplayer, I have not enjoyed them at all.
When was the last time you got into... I haven't played multiplayer since... I play a little bit at launch each time. Maybe get to the max level, maybe prestige one time, but then I usually just stop. Black Ops 4 was a bit different because they had Blackout, and I've just gone back to Blackout recently. I really enjoy that game type. But I didn't get into MP with Black Ops 4. I didn't get into MP too much with World War II. I didn't get into MP too much with Infinite Warfare. Black Ops 3 was probably the last time that I kind of enjoyed it, you know? Like I feel like I played like a decent amount. But you're saying you haven't played. I mean, when was the last time you did play MP?
Put it this way. I never even used my own gun from Infinite Warfare. Because you had to.
You had a gun called the S Ravage.
Yeah. I never used it.
That's fucking so.
It was horrible.
Well, that's a shame. That's a really cool honor to have a weapon named after you, but yeah.
Greatest thing that's happened online. Honestly, it's the coolest thing to ever happen. I wish it was in Modern Warfare, but unfortunately, it was in Infinite Warfare, and that required you to prestige to use it. So that was never happening.
Really? I didn't know that. So you had to prestige to use it, and it was a shitty gun too?
It was on record as the worst gun in Call of Duty history. So that's kind of... I feel like that was a slap in the face.
That is incredible. That is... okay.
That's so messed up.
That is, yeah. It's such an honor and a curse at the same time, really.
In regards to your question, I actually did play Black Ops 3 quite a bit. But I only played Nuketown. That's it.
Of all the jetpack games, I thought that one was probably the best.
I thought the movement was done quite well.
Yeah.
But just Nuketown, I didn't care for those maps whatsoever.
So let's talk about the look. Let's break it up. Let's break these up into sections when we're talking about this game. Because it's a multifaceted conversation. And let's start with talking about the look of the game. When I saw... they brought, like, the first time I went and saw the game, I can't remember what month it was in. It was like June. And we went to the studio, and they walk in and they gave us, like, literally, dude, like a 3-hour presentation on everything that they were doing to change the game. But when they finally showed actual footage from the game, it really blew my fucking mind, because it didn't look like any of the other CODs that I had seen. It looked so, not photorealistic, but it looked way more photorealistic than the previous titles. In my opinion, this is like hands down the prettiest Call of Duty to date, and it's like not even close. I can't think of another title that even comes close to this.
I'd say it's certainly the grittiest looking Call of Duty, like the more realistic feel to it, you know. But when it comes to the colors, they're a bit more muted than some of the Black Ops games, like Black Ops 3, I believe, but I prefer it to be a little more muted. And it looks less arcadey, you know?
It's a little less muted, but when you compare it to like Modern Warfare 3, that was real, or
Ghost, grayscale.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Ghost especially, the colors were toned way down.
That was terrible.
And in this game, I didn't feel like that was the case, but it's definitely less colorful than like Black Ops 4 or something like that.
But also, that leads to certain things like having hyper-realistic bushes and trees and stuff. I was having a problem finding enemies because the enemies are wearing perfect camouflage or whatever, and without the name above them, I would have never found them.
You mean on the map Pine, the one that was like a forest or a...
Yeah, Pine.
That was probably my least favorite map from the alpha, but I mean, I didn't hate it. I mean, I don't suspect I'll be playing a lot of time with 2v2. What about you?
I won't even touch it.
It might be fun for like streamer games, like I think you and XCal versus and me and Trex or something like that. That could be fun.
Yeah, that's. I don't think we should even waste time doing that. I mean, I think we all know the outcome of that match right there.
I would call that a dubious claim, but continue with your point.
I could see wager matches being a thing.
That's what I mean. Yeah, dude, I would love to gamble.
I'll rob you.
All right, I'll hit up Clayster. He can be my dubs partner.
No, you already named your teammate. That's over.
I didn't sign anything. There's no contracts being signed here. No, I don't think I'll play a lot of the but like it still gave you an opportunity to get a feel for the game. So I had a lot of fun with the alpha. And I was glad that they extended it for they only extended it actually for like a couple hours, I think. I was surprised about that.
Oh, I think it was absolutely excellent that it was completely free. Everyone got to play it, and I hope they took some information and are making a couple changes.
Yeah, the only gripe that I had,
get into that.
The only gripe that I had with the graphics was that there was one map in particular, Pine, where I would get pretty substantial frame drops. Like not.
I was running like 20 FPS. It felt like.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I don't know if it's 20 FPS, but if you looked at certain parts of the map, it's kind of like when you play Blackout on console. If you look at firing range, then frame rate dips down to like 35 or 40 frames or something like that. That's what it kind of felt like, and hopefully that's just a byproduct of it being an alpha.
Absolutely, yeah. They're not going to let that roll out.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the sound of the game now, because that was one thing that really, like the crack of the deagle. I'm still thinking about it.
So the sound is, I mean, there's nothing close. This is the best Call of Duty's ever pumped out. There's no doubt about that.
Did you notice the sound, like the way that the sound would reverberate through the map? So like you'd shoot, it would sound like thunder off in the distance.
Yeah, it's crazy what they did with the sound. It's done really well. And one thing that I was hoping to get back, and I believe this game will provide it. This is a thing in older Call of Duties. When someone shoots a gun, you know exactly what that gun is. There's no question about it. And then it kind of turned into a point where all the guns started to sound the same from distance, you know? Yeah. This is going to bring it back so we could tell what that guy's using. Let's say if someone's got a FAMAS, you know he's not going to be rushing you. He's going to be somewhere in the mid. And like that's a kind of a strategy that's went away in the past Call of Duties that hopefully is coming back now.
I hadn't really noticed that. I'm sure you're probably right. I hadn't really noticed that before in terms of all the guns sounding the same, but I feel like they've done a pretty good job with audio in recent CODs. Like beyond just your criticism about the uniformity of the gun sounds, I thought that for example, like I think in the last game they did a good job of if you shot your gun in an enclosed space, it would make a very different sound than if you were outside. And they're doing the same thing here, but I think they're just expanding on that audio engine, whatever they're using for that, and it really blew my mind. Like and like even something as little as when you shoot your gun, you can hear the shell casings clinking on the ground beneath you.
Oh, I love that. Gotta have that.
Those tiny little details are kind of like a lot of those little details are what made me love Call of Duty 4, because they had that game had a lot of personality in terms of the way that the gun sounded and behaved. And it doesn't have any sort of substantial effect on the gameplay itself, but in terms of the feel of the game that you're playing, I feel like it really adds to the experience. And so
to me, sound is everything.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the tiny little details though.
The tiny details, but you need them though. Even if you don't notice them, they're there.
Yeah, they give the game
not recognizes them, but they're there anyway.
They give the game personality.
Absolutely. But now in regards to sound, I believe the footsteps were, I don't know if it was intentional to make it kind of, you couldn't really pinpoint too well.
Yeah, that was an issue that they addressed, and they said that they're going to tweak that for the next beta.
Oh, perfect. See, this is why we need alphas. That is exactly why.
I feel like that's an issue that comes up with COD, with a COD launch every time. I feel like every recent game, people have complained that the footsteps were too quiet, and then they tweaked it shortly after enough feedback. So you'd figure at some point they just cut out the middleman and
and like MW2 and COD 4, though they were arguably too accurate. Like you could tell precisely where someone was down to the exact amount of inches away that they were.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe they don't want that,
or if they were upstairs or downstairs. Yeah, it was
everything.
It was a bit confusing in the alpha, but they did say, I don't know if they said anything about the directionality of the audio, but they definitely said that they are going to turn the audio of your own footsteps down and then boost the audio of enemy footsteps, specifically enemy footsteps, not friendly footsteps.
That's all they got to do. Done.
Yeah, problem solved. That's it.
Probably change like elevation if someone's above you or under you, be different tones. Because I noticed on that map that had that ramp, I don't know what that, like was that like a paintball or something?
King, I think the name of that map was the one that's
like a wooden.
Yeah, the one that's like Kill House. Yeah.
Yeah, when people were above or below you, I didn't notice too much of a different sound from that.
Yeah, maybe when they're
probably changing that.
Maybe if when they actually turn the audio up, that'll change. Hopefully it does. But besides the footsteps, I was really blown away by the audio in this game.
Best sound I've heard in Call of Duty.
Yeah, I don't think that's a stretch. So I would talk about the weapon customization, but you only got to play the alpha. But I assume you saw. Excuse me, I got a burp or something. I assume you saw like the way that the customization works in the game.
Yeah, it looks like there's quite a bit that you could add, but I have no knowledge of this.
So there's, I think for the ARs, I think there's like 8 or 9 potential attachments or attachment slots that you can use. So there's like a foregrip and a different kind of grip and a stock and the magazine and a laser sight and like a few other things I can't remember. And within each slot, there's like 3 to 7 options or something like that. And you get a total of 5 points. So it's kind of like the Pick 10, but I think in this case, it's a better iteration of the Pick 10 is what it felt like to me.
You got to do it. Was there a large change when you were putting different mods on the guns?
It was a substantial change. Like, for example, standard hipfire without any kind of laser sight in this game is way, like the spread is way higher in this game than it's ever been in any other Call of Duty. Like hipfire is total trash, even with something like a submachine gun, unless you have, well, it's a little bit better with the submachine guns, but especially for the ARs, it's a huge hipfire spread. And then when you add a laser sight, you definitely can feel the difference. Now, the interesting thing that they're doing with attachments is that there's pros and cons to each attachment that you add. So like one stock will boost your movement speed, but it'll come at the cost of higher hipfire spread. There's nothing that just gives you a straight up attribute without giving you some kind of a detrimental effect as well. So the implication there is that there's going to be a lot that you can do in terms of combinations of attachments and perks that will really change the way that a gun feels. And that's done really well then. Yeah, I was very kind of overwhelmed at first. I'm like, man, I have no idea. But then like the more I got to play during these preview events, the more I got to actually tinker around with the attachments, the more I realized how much freedom you have to sort of, like they say that every year, right? Like customize the gun to suit your play style. But really, like the attachment didn't change the gun all that much. You know what I mean? Would you agree with that? Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
That wasn't the case for this one.
I think we'll know because after 2 weeks, if everyone's using the exact same loadout on their guns, like, you know, someone's going to make a video saying this is the best loadout. And hopefully there is no actual, you know, top loadout for the gun. Hopefully there is give and takes for each item. And it, you know, like you're saying a stock will lower the hip fire. Then what if you put a laser on it?
Well, one of the stocks. So like it depends on the stock. So like one stock will boost your player movement at the cost of hip fire, but a different stock will boost your player movement at the cost of aim down sight speed. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not just a standard trade-off. Like they give you options like, okay, well, you want to move faster with your gun, you can do that, but you got to sacrifice something in the process. And so they give you
a lot of experimenting,
tons, like
a lot,
like exponential possibilities for how to tune these guns. That being said, like every other COD ever, I think there is going to be some kind of an emergent meta that pops up in 1 hour. Yeah, like within the first few days, I think we'll start to see certain attachments being favored over others. Like for me, the stock, I thought the one that gives you like a folding stock or like the perk stalker in Modern Warfare 3, I thought that was a hugely important attachment in the game because movement speed is so much slower in this game. So if you want to, you know, how do you sort of corner peek? In other games, you had faster movement speed, so you could get away with corner peeking. But in this game, you're a little bit more sluggish. And so I found that when I focused on player movement, it helped my game out a lot. So I was able to strafe out of shots a lot easier. And it just felt that sort of mechanic felt more important in this game than it did in previous games. But I'm very...
Strafe speed is absolutely king, especially with the guns in this game. Are you kidding me?
Super lethal.
It's... You always want strafe speed increased. Like I'll be running stock in every single gun most likely, just off the bat. Yeah.
I mean, with the next part of this discussion that I had marked was the feel of the game, and I feel like we're sort of already in that spot. But I'm really blown away by how different this game feels than the other Call of Duties. Like it's still familiar, but to me, like, and I've said this a bunch in other videos, But I feel like this is the biggest departure in the series since COD 4. You know, like Advanced Warfare was a pretty big departure in the series, but it still kind of felt like Call of Duty, you know? It still had kind of a familiar feel. The feel of this game, it feels different. Like going from COD 2 to COD 4 was like, whoa. And then going from where we're at now with Call of Duties to this game, it almost feels like a totally different game. Like a hybrid between Rainbow Six and Battlefield and Call of Duty. What it kind of
absolutely like. Rainbow Six. They could have changed this whole title. It doesn't even have to be called Call of Duty. You know, like this is so different than previous CODs. It's got a lot of Rainbow Six, a lot of tactical gameplay in it.
What did you
deliberately slow?
What did you feel like were the most different parts of this new kind of build?
Well, you already talked about the movement speed being quite a bit. What it would be chunkier, you know, like it's a bit
weightier.
It's slower. It's more deliberate.
Yeah, you feel like you're heavier. You feel like your character is carrying like
weight.
A 75-pound bag on his back or something.
Everything has weight, though. You know, one shot kills in the game. Everything is slower and more deliberate, more tactical. Totally different than arcade Call of Duty.
So this is kind of confusing. This is kind of confusing to me because you go from saying that Modern Warfare 2 was your favorite in the series, but then also saying that you're really happy with the build that you played on this and that you're really looking forward to the game, even though it's much, much slower than Modern Warfare 2.
I love Modern Warfare 2, but that was 10 years ago now. This is 2019. They stayed with arcade for 10 years. It's not working.
Well, so, just wait until you play like 32v32 or 50v50 or whatever the hell they're doing. I heard a rumor that it's going to be 100v100. I don't think anybody knows anything yet, but on those big team battles, the ones that had 5 domination flags and they're sort of like Conquest and Battlefield, that felt hectic. That definitely felt fast and hectic just because there was so much going on. There's like vehicles in that game mode. You can hop on a scooter to get to the other side of the map, which is pretty wild for... Like the only other time they've done that in COD is COD 3.
I don't like vehicles. I don't like them at all. I didn't get to play them in this game, but I don't like them in any, like in Battlefields and stuff. I know that's the whole point of the game, but I don't like vehicles.
The only thing that I saw that you could use were these little ATVs. That was it. And they were exactly like the ATVs in Blackout.
Aren't there tanks and stuff like kill streaks?
There's a kill streak that you get. Yeah, it's like but it's only on certain maps, I think, that you can call in that particular kill streak. I feel like there's map specific kill streaks, and then there's like universal kill streaks. I could be wrong, but the tank was fucking impossible to deal with unless you had a rocket launcher. So
that's what I don't want to see.
Yeah, you couldn't blow it up with nades. Shooting it, I think, did nothing. But yeah.
But so in terms of gameplay, I got to get 2 things out that are to me the most important things by far.
All right, let me hear it.
1, we don't know, like the meta of the game has not been figured out, and I guarantee you, if this stays in place, it will be the game, the lean system. No one's doing it yet, because no one has realized how overpowered it is. When you lean, you lose, the recoil goes away. The recoil is substantial in this game.
Yeah, so that's true.
It just eliminates it. So and now everyone, once they figure that out, they're all going to be leaning. That's going to change the entire game. It's going to be extremely tactical if everyone keeps doing this. If they, once they get killed by that, that means another guy starts doing it. And eventually everyone's going to be leaning. And that's it.
Yeah, so
take out the recoil reduction, in my opinion.
So so it does substantially reduce the recoil on these guns, and the recoil I don't even think we've talked about that yet, but there's a ton of recoil in this game, like more than any other Call of Duty. And they talked about, when they were talking to us about their goals for the game, they specifically said, excuse me again, they wanted to slow it down. Like they wanted the emphasis not to be on running into a spawn and killing 5 people or something like that. They wanted it to be more slow and tactical, and they wanted you to hold corners and that sort of thing. So even though the leaning does substantially reduce the recoil, which is pretty huge in a game where there's a ton of recoil, it wasn't. Your body is still pretty exposed, actually. So it's not like it's only just your head and the tip of your pistol that are peeking out of the side. I don't think that a lot of people, the alpha was out for like the whole weekend, and I would say probably 95% of the people by the end of the beta still weren't leaning. They just thought
no one's leaning. That's why we can't determine this game yet, in my opinion. But like the lean being a defensive and an offensive mechanic, to me, too strong.
Yeah,
They made it's intentionally more recoil on these guns because they kill in like 1 to 2 bullets.
Yeah, we've had lean before in Call of Duty, but you never had a recoil reduction because of lean.
That is alarming. But again, no one's doing it yet, which that's why it's fun right now. So I can't say what it's going to be like when everyone starts doing it.
I think it's especially going to be useful in S&D type game types, but I think that probably you're still going to see most people. I mean, they had leaning in they had contextual leaning in COD Ghosts, and very few people
because there was no reason to do it.
Yeah.
But when guns are this chunky, this much recoil, and it removes the recoil, it gives a person a reason to do it.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. I mean, we'll see if you're right. I don't know if you even made a prediction. We'll see if like people actually do use the lean. And if they do, then you might be right about that. But I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on the game. Certainly not more huge than the big changes that they've already made. I'm not too concerned about it, but I get that not everybody likes leaning. It's really annoying when it happens to you, and especially if you're not the type of player to bother to get used to leaning or try it out yourself, then it's going to be annoying when somebody uses that mechanic to kill you in the game.
Leans and sprays you down with minimal recoil. That, trust me, it's going to be annoying. No one wants that. But we'll see how it goes. It's a snowball effect. It will take a few weeks for people to start doing it.
Okay, so what about weapon balance? Now you mentioned we touched on this a little bit before. You talked about how in Modern Warfare 2 they basically made everything overpowered, and so nothing was overpowered. There were only a couple.
That's where they are again. Absolutely, it's the way to do it.
I think there was a dev that came out recently, and I'm paraphrasing, and I don't even know who said it, but they said that recent CODs have focused way too much on balance. Which is kind of odd to hear like a game designer say that, because typically balance is something that devs strive to accomplish instead of avoiding. But this dev just came out and basically said like it's become a problem because it's taking away from the fun aspect of the game. So they would rather not focus on balance and then instead just ask if it's fun.